You weren't a bad player yourself. You started at Charlton before moving on to West Ham. What are your memories of those days?
Well, when I went to Charlton, I was 15 when I went to Charlton, and when I was 17, Jimmy C called me into the office and he said, "I'm going to sign you professional." He said, "Because you're going to get called up for the army in the next 2 or 3 weeks." so I said, "All right." So I signed professional, and I got £10 signing-on fee, and I got 30 shillings a week retainer, and I went in the army, and I was in the army for 2 years. I was stationed in Austria actually, which was very, very good for me because I played with a team called Wacker, and I played with 2 or 3 Austrian internationals, and Ockwork was one, and it was a good experience for me, and I learned a few things out there about training.
At West Ham, you were with people like Noel Cantwell, Bobby Moore. That must have been quite special. And of course, did Bobby Moore used to call you Mr. Alison?
Mr. Alison. one day he was a 12-year-old. When I first worked with him, he was a 12-year-old. And Ted Benton asked me to train the youngsters. And after I'd been there about a month, he called me in the office and he said to me, "Who's the best player, best young player we got?" I said, "Well, I think the boy Bobby Moore is." He said, "What about George Fenn?" He said everybody in the country wanted to sign him. Like, he scored 9 goals for England playing in one match. He was a big, strong, good runner and quite a good finisher. And everybody wanted to sign him. I said, "Well, I think Bobby Moore's a better player than him." I said, "I'm not too sure about George Fenn." I said, "When they get bigger and stronger," I said, he won't be so good, you know. Anyway, everybody knows what Bobby did. And, I was standing at the bus stop one day, just finished training, and he came and stood next to me. He said, "Mr. Alison," he said, "can I sit next to you on the bus?" I said, "Certainly, Bob, sit down." So he's got on the bus, and he's never stopped asking me questions all the way, asking me about this and about that. You know. And he said to me, "Malcolm," he said, he said, "Mr. Alison," he said, "what's the most important thing about football? What's the most important thing to do?" I said, "Knowing what you're going to do with the ball before you get it." And he said to me, "That's wonderful, wonderful." And he said, he wrote in his book that he did that on every ground in the world. You know, he knew what he was going to do with the ball before he got it.
He was a great, great player. We know all about him. But it was your time at West Ham that you had your heart broken, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had TB, and it was the year that West Ham won the second division championship, and I'd worked very, very hard, and there was 8 players in that team who were managers, and there was great enthusiasm amongst the side, and it was only the 6th game, and I was so disappointed when I had to go to hospital. I was in hospital for a year, and they won promotion that year. That was a bit I was delighted for them to win the championship, but I was disappointed that I didn't play in it.
At what point in your life did you decide to gamble? Because I remember coming across information about you that said that you had a 12 months where you just gamble almost professionally.
Yeah. Well, I didn't decide. I mean, life was decided itself upon me. And one day I went to the races, and I met a pal of mine called Arthur Shaw, who played for Arsenal, who loved racing. And he said, "How are you, Mel?" I said, "I'm fine, I'm fine." He said, "Oh, you look great." Everybody used to say, "How are you?" You know, when they know you've been in hospital, like, you know. Anyway, I said, "I feel great." And we were standing by the rails this day, and Jeff Lewis came over. He loved football, Jeff Lewis. "How are you, Malcolm?" I said, "I'm fine, Jeff, I'm fine." "Come and see me tomorrow," he said, "I'll give you a winner." So he told me horse that won, and then we started going together, Arthur and I, and then we sort of gambled for the next 18 months, 2 years. But I realised we won a lot of money the first year, and I realised after a while that, you know, as a professional gambler, you only finish up one way, losing. And really and truly, I wanted to be in football, and strangely enough, I was offered a job at Bath City.
Yeah. But in '65 you come to Main Road and you're working with Joe Mercer. What was the working relationship like with Joe?
Well, it was excellent actually. what happened is when I was at Lillishall, Joe Mercer came to watch some of the sessions. And also in the same class as me was Stanley Matthews and Stan Mortensen and Jimmy Hagan. These three great players were in the same. I was 21, 22 and they were in their late 30s. And as it happens, I think one of them must have spoken to Race Carter because Race Carter rang me up at Plymouth and asked me to go to Plymouth, to Middlesbrough with him. So the next day Joe Mercer rang me and asked me to go and see him. And then I got a message from Stanley Matthews asking me to go with him at Port Vale. So I had these three. So I said to Joe, look, I promised to go and see Race Carter. He said, come and see me first. Now, I was always a Manchester City supporter, even though I lived in Kent, but because when I went to my grandmother's once, I was listening to the radio. It was a cup final in 1934, and Everton were playing Manchester City, and Everton won 3-0. And I always supported the underdog, and so Manchester City was my team, and from 7 years of age. And I got to know all the players who were playing, and so when Joe asked me to come and take the job here, you know, I rang Race Carter up and told him that I was going to go to Manchester City and see Joe Mercer first. And anyway, he said, well, ring me back afterwards, you know. So I came and saw Joe, and I took the job, and I rang Race and told him that I was very sorry. And it's very strange because our first game was against Middlesbrough at Middlesbrough. And I remember Race Carter swearing and saying, calling his players all sorts, you know. He was saying, this useless bunch. Anyway, we got a draw there, I think. It was a draw there, and we went on and we had a good run, and we won the second division that year. But working with Joe was ideal for me, because Joe was a peacemaker. Joe was everybody liked Joe, you know. You go in the boardroom, everybody was like, oh, Joe, Mr. Mercer, nice, so. And I used to sometimes moan or groan or swear at them, you know, or say something about the game, or, you know, be quiet, Malcolm, be quiet.
The relationship, did you deal with the playing side, the coaching, and Joe deal with the management of the club? Was that where the distinction was drawn?
Yeah, I did all the training, working with the players. He used to come and watch sometimes, and he used to say, I remember us doing that at Everton, he said, you know, or that at Arsenal once, with that sort of thing we did, you know. And because Joe had been ill then, you know, I mean, Joe had been ill at Aston Villa, and Nora, his wife, didn't want him to come back into football. But when we won the second division, and he was much more settled, and his memory was coming back, you know, because he couldn't remember things. But his memory was coming back, and then we had a fairly good season the next season, and the next season we won the championship. So he was, you know, he was made up.
Who were the players?
Fantastic shot by Colin Bell.
The FA Cup final. How important was that in the scheme of things at this stage for Malcolm Alison?
Well, it's terribly important, and I never ever thought we could lose. I underestimated Leicester City, actually. And it was a game that was quite difficult. And I realised afterwards that I was never going to underestimate a team again. You know, because you cannot do that. Because you give to your players an air of confidence, overconfidence. I remember one day we were sitting over there on the pitch. It was a nice dry day, sunny day, and the FA Cup draw was 10:30 in the morning, and all the lads were sitting around the radio over there before training, and it came out, Liverpool versus Manchester City. I went, you beauty, what a draw! Great draw, Liverpool, what a stadium, like, what, that must be a fantastic, like. And they all looked at me like,
as he would.
Is he crazy?
He's mad.
Anyway, we went there and we drew 0-0. Rodney hit the crossbar in the last minute, bounced off the line. And we beat them here 2-0. And Francis Lee said to me, he said, that was marvellous, Malcolm. What you did, he said, that was marvellous. He said, you don't know how much you lifted us, you know. The psychology of what you said, you took up all the fear. And in sport, many tournaments, whatever sport, are lost by fear. And this is the most important thing to overcome.
Somerby back to Young. It's there. Beautiful goal. Scored by Young. Made by Somerby. 23 minutes on. Receiving the trophy from Her Royal Highness the Princess Anne. Behind Her Royal Highness the Leicester City Chairman, who must be proud of his team. Well done, Tony Brooks. I think they want Joe Mercer to take part in the lap of honour. And Malcolm Alison. It's Malcolm Alison they want. And Joe, they want Joe Mercer too. Malcolm Alison, the first time I think he's ever taken orders from the players.
You become not the coach of Manchester City, but the manager. What changes?
Well, for me, nothing changed. But if I had my time over again, I would have a more experienced person than myself. Like, I mean, I was 39, 40. I would have a more experienced person myself working with me. I had a good trainer. I had a man called Johnny Hart, who was very good. John didn't want the responsibility, and if I had the chance to do it again, yeah, I would definitely get somebody to do the office work and to do detail work, you know, like which was sometimes it was a pest, like, you know, and you didn't really want to do it. And, you know, all I wanted to do was be out working with the players.
Right, go! Come on, fast in, fast in! Right, go! Come on, fast in, come on! Use your arm, use your arm! Right, go! Come on, fast in, come on, all the way, up!
You've got to build on the success you've already created. You buy players. Rodney Marsh.
Yeah.
Never worked, did it?
No.
Why?
Well, first of all, I had a player called Ian Barrier. He was a good young player. But I felt that I needed a bit more quality, maybe, just a better player. He was a good player. And Cloughie took him and played him in midfield, and he did great. You know. Now that's what I mean, I didn't think to change him. Anyway, I went, and I'd always liked Rodney Marsh from a kid when he was playing for Fulham. And I thought, well, he would be the player. He was very talented. People loved him. The crowd loved him. I mean, record crowds here when he was here. The crowd loved him, his tricks and things like that.
3 marked by 4. Doyle. Marsh! Oh, he took that superbly! Followed across to take Marsh. Roughly right
He wasn't the right player. I mean, I used to have groups of 6 players, 5 groups of 6 players, and the best group was number 1 group, and Rodney was in number 5 group. You know, for 4 weeks in training. Like that was on ability, on work and running and things.
Push him away from this far post. Bend around inside this far post.
He'd never trained before. He said, I didn't know what training was. He said, he didn't realise, you know, you had to work so hard.
You mentioned the cup run, and of course it was the introduction of the flamboyant Malcolm Alison, the fedora. What prompted you to wear that hat?
My girlfriend bought it for Christmas for me.
Galatasaray, 2 years, Plymouth Argyle. You come back to Main Road. They say never go back. Why did you?
Well, I was tempted by it, and I had such a good time here. You know, I mean, I didn't know about that. People never saying, don't ever go back, don't ever go back. You know, I wouldn't have taken notice anyway. You know, I'd have just gone and done what I wanted to do. And I came back here, and failed, and never got it together.
Can you put your finger on why?
I think that when I came here, there was maybe 12 or 14 old players, over 30. And the year before, I think they'd had their swan song. They finished second in the league, and I think they played Milan or someone in the European Cup, or European, one of the UEFA Cup. And everybody thought they were a good side. But the one thing that I believe that no side could be good without is training. And they didn't really want to train. You know, they got to the stage of a professional player gets when he's over 30 and someone's pushing him and pushing him harder than he's ever been pushed before. You know, they just react. And that's what happened here.
So a decision had to be made. New players brought in, old players pushed out. You brought in lots of new ones, and they cost a lot of money.
Well, the one player that cost a lot of money was Steve Daly. I didn't even know that the chairman had gone to see their chairman. I didn't know anything about the transfer until I got back we played Southampton on the Saturday, and the chairman never came with us, and I didn't realise that he'd gone to Wolverhampton Wanderers to sign this player, Steve Daly. Now, I had an arrangement with John Barnwell to buy this player. He wanted £600,000 for it. So when John had his accident, he went to hospital, he had a bad head injury, and his memory was gone, you know. I rang Ricky Barker, and I said to him, John and I had agreed £300,000 for Steve Daly.
Not the sort of thing a football person would do. Go on.
This is another, just to see, like. Anyway, Ricky said, no, 600,000, like, I said, all right, forget it. But I didn't think he was worth 600,000, you know. So I didn't bother about it, and it went on for 3, 4, 5 months. And then Peter Swales went and bought him for £1,400,000. And that was when I realised that directors were getting involved in transfers. You can make up your own mind about that.
Headed back by Henry to Daly. Daly beat the ground with frustration when he saw that shot go wide. Beautiful cross, Daly! Oh, he's missed it! Well, it really did seem easier to score from this angle.
When you were
It was wrong. I never even inquired about the players. I never even listened to any. I didn't make any inquiries or nothing. Just came, took the job. You should never do that. You know, when you're taking the job, you should go and find out about it and see if there's a chance for you to be successful.
I suppose that was more to do with your love of this club.
Yeah, of course. I was in love with this club. Yeah.
So when you look at the club today, what goes to your mind?
I look at that ground, and I remember coming here and saying to the groundsman, "You've got to make this ground smaller for me. It's too big. You've got to make it smaller. The playing area is smaller. But the team's not good enough. I want to draw the games. I don't want to get beat." And I made him make the pitch smaller. He's just retired now, the groundsman. Great guy, Stan. Lives at the back of the hill. And 18 months, 2 years later, I said, "I want you to make this the biggest pitch in the country."
You're a good team now, aren't you, you see? But you left a legacy here that the club has found difficult to follow. The fan base that they have here now, which was born out of your success with the club, is magnificent. They're still coming, regardless of the situation here at the club. That must make you feel very special.
Yeah. And especially for a man like Ian Niven, who did all the work, went to the fathers, got the junior blues in, went to the schools, gave them the tickets. We had a new stand was built there, and there was always 1,000 seats, 500 seats empty. And I said, give them to the schools, give them to the schools. That's how them kids came.
And that is something that football should be doing today, should it not?
Of course it should. I mean, if it's very expensive today for parents to take kids. They should, if they're going to take their kids and they can prove that this is his son, they should be able to go in for nothing with the father.
You've had a wonderful, wonderful life, haven't you?
Yes. Yes, I have.
For the sake of summing up, if I drew this picture and said to you that you've treated football rather like a mistress, you've had fun with her, would that be fair?
I've had lots of fun, lots and lots of. I've often thought and stood, whether it be in Portugal or Turkey or America or wherever I was, and thought, you are so lucky. And then I thought, no, you're not. You worked hard at it. If you work hard, and I say to my children, get a job that you love doing. Work at things you like doing. Because if you don't, you don't enjoy your life.
Well, we've enjoyed you taking us through your career and down memory lane. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Malcolm. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Doc.